Hello everyone, welcome back. We will be doing with chapter 4, that is trade and globalization. Okay, so today in this chapter we'll be learning about how trade is related with the expansion of a global atmosphere connecting one place to another. Okay, and we will also be touching about how Silk Route began, and we'll be learning about how changes took place from one century to the other, and then we'll be learning about endangered labor. Okay, so firstly, what made a global world? Global world started when people started to move from one place to another, for trade purpose, as well as for when they started trading with one another from one country to another. They started moving from one place to another. So that is termed as migration. They began to migrate to other region. So these made the movement of capital on a very large scale. When we say movement of capital, means movement of goods became very widespread. And with this, it created a global interconnectedness between one country to the other country. So we can assume that it was a slow process, and it dates back to a very long past, but it started with people migrating from one place to another place, mostly for trading purpose, which ultimately led to the interconnection of one country to the other country. So when we move on, so there is a question, what is globalization? What is referred to as globalization, in today's context? So globalization is the process by which the world is becoming increasingly interconnected as a result of massively increased trade and cultural exchange. So likewise, when there is trade, people want products from one country, people want just say spices from India, people want pottery from China, so they go to these places, buy the product, come back. So when this happens, connection starts to build up between, for example, the British started spice trade in India. So connection began to start. People started knowing about Britain, people started knowing about what the foreign countries were, people started knowing about how the foreign culture was. So this can be termed as globalization. When people starts to interconnect, people starts increasingly interconnecting with each other through the process of trade, as well as through the process of migration and through the process of cultural exchange. This can be termed as a globalized society or globalization. Moving on, so in around 50 years, the human population was also expanded at an accelerated rate, at a very fast rate. We can see so much changes, which it's very much visible in our society and with human population also. So in the past 50 years, this has accelerated, the population increase has accelerated, globalization has accelerated on a very rapid and fast way. So moving on, so the first and earliest form of globalization which existed, was from the Roman Empire, which Roman Empire, the Parthian Empire with the Han dynasty, which happened. So what happened was, you can see the red line on the map. So this was a land route, which was known as the Silk Route, which was originated in order for trade purposes, to link China and the Roman Empire, in order to trade, and it was also known as the Silk Route. So It was mainly established for the purpose of trade with the Southeast Asian countries, okay, importantly China and the Roman Empire, okay. And also with this, okay, the Islamic age also appeared. Okay, so the Islamic age, where the Muslim traders slowly they began to establish a global economy. Okay, they began to establish a global economy in most parts of the world, especially in India. Okay, so, and they were mostly focused in trading with these countries where they went, okay, in terms of crops, exchanging their knowledge as well as their technology. Okay, so what happened later, okay, the Mongol Empire, okay, they focused mostly on the Silk Route because they had to trade with other European countries, with which the importance of the Silk Route increased. Okay, and so by 16th and 17th century the Silk Route became very popular, and later on the Portuguese and the Spanish traders also began to reach far-flung areas. Also, they started expanding to the Americas as well. Okay, so we can see that expansion happened. Okay, expansion took place with the start of trading, with the establishment of the Silk Route. Okay, and also it became popularized during the Mongol Empire, and later on the Portuguese and the Spanish people, they also started expanding their territories in parts of America. Okay, so next. Okay, moving on, we have the Silk Route. Okay, the Silk Route was a very important route, okay, which was set up for trade. It was a land road which connected China, okay, which was a window to Asia, as well as the Silk Route connected the European countries. So it acted as a doorway for both Asia as well as for European countries. Okay, and also this route was a very important route for linking trade, okay, for linking traders and merchants, okay, who sold off their products, okay, who sold off their goods from one place to another. Okay, and also pilgrims as well as monks, soldiers, nomads and urban dwellers, okay, from China to the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, so they went from pilgrims or maybe monks, okay, they went from one place to another as a sign of pilgrimage. Okay, and also trade on the Silk Route was a very significant factor, okay, because it led to the development of the Chinese Empire as well as the Mesopotamian Empire, the Persian Empire, okay, and also it helped the Indian subcontinent. Okay, this route, which was furnished by the Chinese, okay, and which helped the Asian countries as well as the European countries to flourish in their trade. Okay, so what happened was, when the Mongol dynasty or when the Mongol Empire crashed down, okay, or maybe fell down, what happened was the Silk Route didn't function as it functioned before, okay, and it was too dangerous, okay, for people to travel through the Silk Route. Okay, so the Roman Empire or the Europeans, okay, they knew the Chinese was very much profitable in their silk trade, in their pottery, okay, and so they wanted to trade with the Chinese Empire. Okay, so they tried to carve out a more easier route, which was also known as the Silk Route, okay, which was also known as the Silk Route, but it connected through the sea. Okay, so the first red lines that you see in this map are the first Silk Road which were established on land. okay, which were established on land, but slowly by slowly with the Mongol Empire coming to an end, what happened was the Europeans, okay, they knew that the Chinese were very rich in silk, okay, in silk trade and in pottery. They wanted the Chinese products, okay. So what they did was they started to carve out a new Silk Road, okay, which was a waterway route, okay, which was also known as Silk Road. So we can just see the blue lines connecting Europe, okay, to China as well as to the Southeast Asian countries, okay, which is known as another Silk Route. And this route provided more benefit because it was easier to reach the Chinese territories, okay, and it made trade easier for the Europeans as well. So in return, okay, China and India, they transferred, okay, Chinese pottery as well as spices to the European countries, and the Europeans in turn gave them with silver and gold. Okay, so that was how it existed, and this Silk Route played a very important role in creating connection as well as interconnecting the European countries as well as the Asian countries. Okay, so this route was of great importance, okay, till today, okay, considered till today. Moving on, okay, what were the changes in the 19th century? Okay, so 19th century comes about, okay, many progress happens because of the trade activity which goes on, okay. So what happens? Economic, social, political, technological as well as cultural factors were all changed. Why? Because people started to interconnect with one another. They started exchanging their cultural values in their cultural ways, okay. Technologically wise, okay, they are becoming more advanced, okay. Economy wise, they're becoming richer and richer, okay. Socially means society was also changed because they no longer live the way they were living before, okay, because they were getting richer and richer, so their life standards were also changing, okay. And so economics, okay, economies identify three types of movement or flows, okay, which happen in the international economic exchange. Okay, the first was the flow of trade or trade in goods. Okay, so during the 19th century, flow of trade or trade in goods was seen at a very large scale. Okay, flow of labor or migration of people in search of employment. Okay, in the 19th century, they saw a huge number of laborers who migrated to different countries or in different areas where they wanted to get employment and profit. And the last was the flow of capital for investment overseas. Okay, how the monies were being transferred from one area to another, how it was being profited, okay, that was overlooked, and this was seen during the 19th century. These kind of changes were seen at large in the 19th centuries. Okay, moving on to the next topic, that is the late 19th century colonialism. Okay, so what happened? 19th century, you know, a lot of progress have been seen, economically wise, social wise, politically wise, you know, trading wise. Okay, so what happened? Everything began to develop. Okay, and as such, okay, trade system also expanded. Relationship began to relationship, okay, which was there, began to be closed. Okay, people became close, relationship began to strengthen. Okay, but what happened? Okay, what happened was economy also began to increase. But what happened? People started losing their freedom. People were no more free. Why? Because colonialism, okay, colonialism started in the society. Okay, people began to capture one country after another. They started occupying the country. They started ruling the country. As such, Britain, okay, Britain, which was a small country, what happened? They started to dominate, started to colonize most part of Africa, Australia, okay, India, okay, and also Southeast Asian countries as well as America. Okay, so colonialism took a very twisted turn, okay, when one country began to procure, as well as when one country tried to extract all the economy of the other countries. Okay, so what happened was this brought about many changes in the late 19th century, okay, where people started to lose their freedom. People began to be ruled after another. Okay, so this was widely seen during the late 19th century. Okay, so the next topic is the endangered labor migration from India. Okay, so what happened was the Europeans, they brought slaves at large from Africa, okay, and so when they were working, so they were treated very brutally by the British. Oh, wow, wow. Next topic is the endangered labor migration from India. Okay, so the British brought a huge number of African slaves in order to work in their sugar plantation. Okay, and so with due course of time, the Africans were treated brutally by the British, and so they had to protest against it. And what happened was slavery, which was in existence, was abolished in 1834. Okay, so you can just see the condition of how the African slaves were being brought in. Okay, so the African slaves had to work in the sugar plantation. Okay, and so what happened was they demanded the British or the Europeans to give them a better way of life, give them a better living condition, as well as pay them a good amount of money so that they would be able to look after their family. Okay, but this plight of the slaves was not accepted by the white people, or maybe by the Europeans and the British. And so the plantation workers or the slaves, they began to leave these areas, or they refused to work for the British people. And so what happened, the plantation began to fall down because there were no workers in it. And so the European planters, they had to find out different means. Okay, so they had to find out where they can find cheap laborers in order to do the same work. Okay, with which, okay, what they did was they brought in people from the European countries, such as the Portuguese from the island of Madeira, okay, in order to do the work in the sugar plantation. Okay, they were made to do the same work, the same amount of time, but these people from Portuguese could not do the work like the Africans did it. Okay, and these people, they were not able to withstand the climatic condition. They were not able to withstand the long working hours. Okay, and also most of them, they died because of the treatment, the ill treatment they got from the Europeans. Okay, and so they had to suffer at large because of this. Okay, so the British had no other option, okay, but they had to look for other means again. And so the base idea was bringing the Indians. Okay, so what happened was, after the first war of independence in 1857, okay, so the British, what they did was they wanted to bring cheap labor where they will not pay much money to the people who are working, to the slaves. So they found great opportunity in India after the first war of independence, okay, and then they issued the endangered labor contract, okay, which was developed by the British, okay, in order to bring migrants from India, okay. And so, okay, by 19th century, huge amount of Chinese as well as the Indian slaves were brought to the colonial areas, okay, and they had to work in the plantation. Okay, the Indians could sustain it. Okay, they had to work in the plantation as well as they had to work for such as laying down the railway tracks. Okay, they had to lay down the railway tracks, they were constructing roads, okay, as well as they were doing many other works. Okay, so they were hired and by the British, okay, in order to work. And most of the people who came or who migrated as laborers were from places such as Bihar. Okay, the first one is the region of Bihar, second is the Uttar Pradesh region, third is the Central India region, and the fourth is the Tamil Nadu regions. Okay, these were the places where people were being transported in order to work as slaves to other colonial places. Okay, so why did they why did thousands and thousands of Indians, okay, were willing to go to these places and work? Okay, they were willing to go and work in these places because by 19th century a huge amount of cottage industries declined. Okay, so most of the houses which were set up were on rent, okay, in order to run the industry. Okay, so when British goods started entering India, the cottage industry started to fall down, okay, began to cripple down. And so a large number of people began to suffer because they had nothing in their hand. Okay, and so they had no other option but to accept the opportunity which was given by the British and then move to these places as slaves. Okay, so the main destination where these slaves were taken were to the Caribbean islands, that is Trinidad, Suriname, Guyana, okay, Fiji and Mauritius. Tamil migrants were sent to Ceylon, that is in Sri Lanka, and Malaya, okay, that is Malaysia, and some were also needed for tea plantation in Assam. Okay, so these people, some of them have still stayed back in this region and have become as a native people of these places. Okay, so many migrants agreed to work, okay, in these places because they wanted to escape from poverty. They didn't want to live a life of poverty where they didn't have anything. Okay, so they thought that by accepting and by going, okay, they would be, they would at least earn some money, become rich and come back. Okay, and also the agents who took them, okay, they falsely said that, okay, they will get good jobs, okay, their mode of travels and living and working conditions will also be good. Okay, and also said that they can return back to India after working for 5 years. Okay, but this was also a false information which was given by their agent. Okay, so many of the workers, okay, what they did was they escaped, okay, from this region, okay, into the wild. But once they were captured, okay, they were beaten up brutally by the British people or the European people. Okay, and also with this, okay, cross culture began to emerge in this region because many of the people, many of the Indian slaves who went to these places began to marry down with the natives out here, began to settle down in this region, and cross culture began to start in this place. Okay, and also annual Muharram, okay, which is kind of festival for the Muslims, okay, are also celebrated in Trinidad. Okay, and also with this, okay, most of the endangered workers stayed there, okay, even after their contract expired. And the Nobel Peace Prize winner Led V.S. Naipaul, okay, who was also one of the endangered labor, okay, the nationalist leader opposed, okay, he opposed the system of endangered labor, and finally it was abolished in 1921. Okay, so it was with the help of late V.S. Naipaul, okay, the system of endangered labor migration was suspended. Okay, so when we say endangered, means blinded labor migration. They are lured, they are given false hope that they will earn more money, Okay, what they did in turn was they would bring them as slaves to their place. Okay, no good living condition. Okay, money were also given very less, but working hours were more, and if they were not able to do the certain work, they would be beaten up by their owners. Okay, so that was the condition and plight of the indentured laborers. Okay, and once they settled down there, most of them began to reside over there, okay, without returning back to India. Okay, so that was the plight of the endangered labor migration, which finally came to an end in 1921. Okay, so that is all for today. Thank you and have a nice day.